On tonight's Cover One Buffalo podcast, we are joined by the Times-Picayune's Matthew Paris to preview Bills Saints. But first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
Dude, I am doing great. I am in a rush against time during our introduction there to make sure that I also post this out. I don't know what they're called on Blue Sky, but post it out to Blue Sky. I lost tonight, so you might have heard me. If you're an audio person, you might have heard some chitter chatter here when that intro came in. But the folks here out on Blue Sky, I'm looking out for you too. I'm trying to let you know to come on and get in here. I know Greg sent out the get in here on Twitter, so just trying to do our best to make sure everybody knows.
Appreciate it. I'm doing one from the road here, getting everything all set up. It's my first conference room one. Usually I'm in a hotel room. Today I'm in the conference room. So, just branching out.
Conference room in an evil villain lair. Yeah, for sure.
I am not at liberty to disclose, but I am in an undisclosed location. So obviously, we talked pre-show. We've got Matthew here joining us in just a second. And it's a super weird week. So obviously, anytime we go through the rotation of the intra-conference games, we get into matchups with teams that we don't play very often. I actually just saw a stat on teams that have the best record in, Highmark, Ruffles, and Rich Stadium. The Saints have actually only lost in Buffalo once in the history of our matchup. Yeah. But more incredibly, we've only played 5. They've only been in Buffalo 5 times ever. So this is only the 6th matchup they've ever been in Buffalo. So it shows why there's some lack of familiarity, why there's not as much history to pull on. We know who we're going to pull in for our Dolphins and Chiefs and Ravens and Patriots and Jets matchups. But tonight we are joined by a first-time guest of the show, Mr. Matthew Paris, the Times-Picayune. Matthew, how we doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. It's an honor then.
Absolutely. It's an interesting week of 2 teams in slightly different positions here from a season standpoint. But why don't you start us out? Just tell us a little bit how are things going from an expectation standpoint. I don't think the bar was super high for a lot of people around the Saints organization or fan base. Obviously, always some things we'll get into with individual players later on, but where are things versus expectations so far this year?
Yeah, it's funny. The Bills are catching them at a real interesting time because the first 2 weeks were the Saints team that fans expected in terms of, oh, hey, they're scrappy. It's Kellen Moore's first year. These games are coming down to the wire. Hooray. Last week was just a total abomination. Just
got out of hand quick.
Really got out of hand, 44-13. It just looked really, really ugly. Saints are playing some undisciplined football right now. They lead the league in penalties, or at least tied with the league in penalties. And so it's really ugly, and it'll be really interesting to see how they respond because the first 2 weeks, I think, were a little bit more, what people thought the Saints could be. And also last week was also what the people thought the Saints could be, but from a national perspective, right? Like there was kind of this juxtaposition of the national media seeing the Saints as, oh, this team's going to have the number 1 pick. And locally, fans were like, oh, yeah, they'll be bad, but maybe first team, I don't know. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, and what is that discussion like sort of this week? Was it brushing it off a little bit of oh, hey, the Seahawks they had a great special teams day, and once you get behind, you're just kind of spinning your tires, and they are the team that maybe we saw the first 2 weeks? Or are there kind of people within this fan base kind of being like, oh, maybe the national media was right, and this is a little bit closer to who they thought we were. Like we're sort of the fan base in on this pulse, because I'm not tuned into Saints Twitter as much as I'd probably like to be.
Yeah, it's somewhere in between, I would say. I don't think that people are quite out on the season. I have seen questioning like Kellen Moore a little bit for the first time, which I think is maybe natural for like this type of loss leads to like, oh, who did the Saints hire? But that's not necessarily like, I think that's a little bit of an overreaction. I think Kellen Moore will be fine kind of in the long term. But Gail Benson, the Saints owner, was at practice today. Like, she was also visiting the Pelicans. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe it wasn't. But she chatted with Kellen Moore for the whole time the media was out there, which, as you guys know, is like 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a little interesting. And there's definitely some urgency to this week, at least in terms of getting some of these like penalties corrected and playing a little bit sharper, even if they don't beat the Bills.
So I know, obviously, I think that some of the fan base rightfully had a bit of that, kind of silver lining hope, because the Saints have had this track record of being more competitive, not being there at the bottom and falling out. Honestly, a lot like kind of the drought era Bills, where we were never good, obviously post Breeze era and post the fantastic run that the Saints had, but in the most recent years here, where it's, hey, it isn't great, but it's not the bottom's not falling up. You're not getting those premium top end draft picks, and obviously the Saints know the power of having a Hall of Fame quarterback. Is that what the season has turned into? Of like, hey, is it evaluating the younger guys and looking to see, are there pieces where they can be a part of the long run, but ultimately getting that draft pick for a franchise quarterback? Or is it more so, hey, maybe there's legitimate evaluation with Rattler and with Shuck if he gets in there? Where is that? Is there anticipation with those guys, or is it more like, hey, we need to get the pick to get her?
Yeah, I would say it's probably toward the latter, if I'm being honest. I think this, like, for a long time here, it's like, especially in recent years, Saints fans have desperately wanted a rebuild. Drew Brees retired, and this team was like, our roster is good enough to compete. We're going to go for it. We're going to keep pushing back these contracts and going to like not worry about the cap as much. And that bill came due. They tried to go all in with Derek Carr. That did not work. People hated Derek Carr down here. He was a very frustrating player for them.
That seems universal in many locations.
And so because of that, him retiring this offseason accidentally did, like, it forced the Saints to kind of actually hit the reset button in maybe the way that they didn't want to, in terms of, okay, they're going to go for a young quarterback. They're probably going to be in the quarterback market anyway in terms of the draft, but now there is that question of, when does Tyler Shuck get in? Does he get in? Like, how much, like, does he have to prove that he's the guy? Can Spencer Rattler keep on the job? Like, Rattler's played pretty well the first 3 games, but given that he is 0-9 as a starter throughout his career, if it doesn't improve and he doesn't get into the win column, like, there's going to be calls for Shuck at some point, because even if he plays like this, it's just a matter of, like, how long can the Saints keep doing this over and over? And then I think they're going to have to be forced to make some decisions. But right now, I mean, Kellen Moore has thrown his hat behind Spencer Rattler. Even this week, he's been pretty supportive of him. And so not quite a quarterback controversy yet. But, I do think long term is, if the Saints are at the top of next year's draft and say Garrett Nussmeier is the top pick, then they employ Doug Nussmeier, the offensive coordinator. So that could be an interesting storyline. But right now, it's just pretty much a wait-and-see mode.
Yeah, let's jump right into that side of the ball, because obviously the quarterback on this offense is the most glaring thing for this matchup in this year. But sort of from an evaluation standpoint as well, how do you guys, like, how are you kind of dealing with this idea of, hey, we're trying to evaluate a Spencer Rattler, maybe we're going to eventually evaluate Shuck, but this offensive line, I don't think gives you necessarily a fair evaluation. I'm not even sure this receiving core and in its entirety necessarily gives Spencer Rattler also a very fair evaluation. Like, this is an unfinished team that probably isn't a fair spot for a young quarterback to be fully evaluated within. Is that fair to say?
I do somewhat. It's funny because if you look at the unit that like the people that Spencer Rattler was playing with last year when they were injured to hell, that this is mountains better than that or miles above. Like at least you have Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed healthy. They're pretty good receivers. The thing that's not working for the Saints offense right now is not even necessarily the offensive line. That's been okay. It's they haven't hit on any of these deep shots. Kellen Moore really emphasizes threes and layups. That's kind of his like offensive philosophy, but they're not hitting on any threes right now. It's teams are playing a lot of zone against them, a lot of over the top coverages. And it's because, the Saints haven't really gotten ahead in any of these games. Like you look at the Seahawks game specifically, they got out to such a big lead that you can just sit back and let the Saints dink and dunk their way down the field. And, that they're putting together 15 plays drives that only end up in a field goal. Like they just haven't had those explosives that can change games, that can make teams nervous. And so I think that's going to be a focal point for them, especially trying to go into this week. But overall, it's okay. Like you mentioned their offensive line. I think Kelvin Banks, their first round pick, who's playing left tackle, has been like a nice bright spot for them. It's just a matter of like, can these individual bets that they're making on offense pay out? Because even on the offensive line, for instance, they're betting on Banks to be their left tackle. They're betting on Fuaga, their first round pick last year, to be their right tackle. Sure. And then they've moved Trevor Penning from tackle to guard. So it's just like a series of, are these things going to pay off for them?
Yeah, it just seems, it's like a young it's such a young roster and it's a developing roster. You're developing that offensive line. And I don't know, just in watching some of the tape, I don't know that if I'm trying to evaluate a quarterback, I don't know that I'm getting that total fair evaluation on that quarterback in that sense. But another thing that's really not helping the quarterback position or really this offensive move, and maybe the defenses, is having a lack of seeing a running game here right now in New Orleans. Is that led by the offensive line, or is the running back starting to age out over there?
I do think that's more on the offensive line. It's funny. I talked to Brandon Thorne, who's like I think is the best offensive line expert out there, and he was saying how like he sees their offensive line as like more of like a run heavy, like that's what those guys do well, but it just hasn't necessarily translated to start the season. I think part of that is because they've been so behind in these games that they haven't really had the opportunity to run as consistently as they would have liked, at least in the Seattle. But yeah, it's not. I mean, I think Alvin Kamara is still a very good running back. He just hasn't had like a lot of explosive runs so far. I think they both average, both being Kendre Miller. They haven't averaged 4 yards a carry. Like the run game could definitely be better. And I think Kellen Moore too is still finding his rhythm as a play caller and how he wants to mix in the run with his personnel.
So I'll jump in here on the defensive side of the ball. It's interesting. You go through, and obviously I haven't been watching every Saints game. So as I'm kind of preparing and going through and watching some of the condensed rewatches and looking at some of the numbers, like, I'll be shocked to find that Demario Davis is still pretty good at football, and having the depth that has always been there. Cameron Jordan's still good. Carl Granderson still sacking the quarterback. Shockingly, like that front seven actually seems like it still has some of the pieces there. Brian Bruce is still playing pretty good, and having some of that together there's been bright spots. Nathan Shepard has had some decent play here. I was a little bit surprised, and I think that probably fits in with why the first two games were competitive and were right there scrapping together, because that front actually still looked pretty good.
Yeah, it's a real, I don't know if it's sliding doors is the right term, but 8 sacks, it was up near the top of the league. But if you look at their pressure rate, their last in pressure rate and last in total pressures, so they're not generating like a ton of pressure on the quarterback. I think it was a huge problem in the Seattle game. I think it's swung some of these games, like even in the San Francisco game, Mac Jones, like the 49ers were 8 of 12 on third downs. They finished 8 of 15, but they're just not getting these timely stops. Like now they've missed Chase Young. I think his absence has hurt. He's been injured with a calf injury. I don't think he's going to play this week. again. So, him missing his fourth straight game is a problem for them. But I do think this defense can be feisty. Demario Davis, I agree, is just playing like terrific football right now. But elsewhere outside of that, I don't know. It feels like it's very much a unit in transition to me, where like Brandon Staley wants to implement like this zone heavy kind of disguise look coverage and have speedier edge rushers. And I just don't think they certainly don't have like that impact player along the defensive line.
Yeah, obviously Cam Jordan's not at that stage of his career anymore. And even, a stud like Davis, he's awesome coming downhill and is smart of where to be from a coverage standpoint, but isn't, going to be out there in space. That was never his strength, out there in space. He was never like the Fred Warner type. He was just a monster coming downhill. Unfortunately, on the back end, there's been very few bright spots to be able to cling to. Obviously, I think a lot of people, myself included, were big Justin Reed fans. But he was never like a cure-all center fielder. He was more of like a speeding bullet to be able to go and make hits and be able to make impact. But, I know you put out a piece today about Isaac Yiadom potentially needing to worry about his starting spot. Maybe tell the fans a little bit about what's going on there. Here's a guy that I think he came over from San Francisco. When he came over, I was actually a fan of his. He was a guy that I did some work on as maybe a value signing to look at in free agency. And I know he's probably a guy who needs to be the weaker link on a good overall secondary versus somebody to be dependent on. Where has that fallen now, where McKinstry is, young but still struggling? Reed is maybe misplaced as kind of that center fielder, and Yiadom hasn't held up as the other guy opposite those guys.
Yeah, like Yiadom is your like backup piece. Like they signed him to a 3-year, $9 million deal. So like it's very much this guy's our fourth corner. And if our like a few years ago when he was here, it was Marshawn Lattimore, Alontae Taylor, Paulson Adebo, and then one of those guys get hurt, and then Yiadom entered the game, and it was like, oh, he's fine, he can get by.
Yes,
now
a high-end depth piece.
Yeah, high-end depth piece. Like Lattimore is gone, Adebo is gone, and so now Yiadom is holding down that spot for basically Quincy Riley until he's ready, and the Saints started to play him a little bit against Seattle. I would expect his usage to go up, especially as the season goes along here. It is very much a secondary, though, that I think they're still finding their way. Like Kool-Aid McKinstry, I thought had a great training camp. It hasn't translated to the start of the season. Alontae Taylor looks pretty solid in the slot, but still, I think, finding his way. Justin Reed has been really good in the run game, but yeah, in the pass game, they're not really using him as like a center fielder. That's actually Jonas Senker, but Jonas Senker is a rookie who's filling in for Will Blackman, who is filling in for Tyrann Mathieu because he retired. Like they're really already on like their third center of the year or their third safety of the year on that back end. And so it's been a little bit piecemeal, and I think they're just trying to find, their footing. But I do think like, man, if this team was able to generate a little bit more pressure, I think the back end would be a lot better because that's just like when the Saints do generate pressure, they're doing so in 3.17 seconds, which is the longest like rate in the NFL. Like they're just not generating a lot of pressure. And when they do generate pressure, it's taking forever. So I think they can help that way.
When I saw the initial signing of having, I was like, oh, well, I mean, Julian Blackman and having Jordan Reed, like that's a nice safety pairing. I thought that was going to come together well, but then you lose Blackman. Is there any timeline for him returning?
He's not for the year. Yeah.
It's for the year. Okay.
Yeah.
So, now all of a sudden, like you said, Jonas Senker coming in and being forced into play and all these other guys probably each playing a level or two above where they're supposed to be, you get some of the results that we've seen to this point.
It's funny you accidentally said Jordan Reed. Between Eric Reed, who's Justin's brother, Jordan Reed, Julian Blackman, Justin Blackman, Will Blackman, like their safeties are just like, random collection of that guys in history who have just like, you've got to double check it when you're typing because it always trips me up.
Yeah, thank God you have you have to be more careful about that. Then the internet will still yell at me for
Oh no,
misstating
you're
it.
good. I just
Don't worry.
The internet's
Oh, don't
gonna
worry.
kill
The
me
comments
tonight.
will
Do
let
I
me know about
sound?
it.
I
do
I
sound
pointed it
worse?
out just because I do it all the time. So I just thought it was funny.
Do I sound worse?
No, you're good.
It's not worse. We can hear
It's
you.
not worse.
It's-
The internet is pissed at me. So you guys can say whatever you want. I'm going to take all the heat tonight.
All right. So, Matthew, we appreciate it. You've been more than generous with your time. What do you expect to see on Sunday?
You know, if it was 44-13 for this game, like it would have been like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But because the Saints are coming off such a bad outing, I still like the Bills to cover. The spread opened at 16.5. It's 15.5 now. I mean, that's a high number for any NFL team, but I don't know, man. Like the Bills are just so good. They can beat you in a lot of different ways. I could see it being like maybe kind of, or maybe wide early, and then it kind of like getting closer late to where the Saints can say they fought. Like, I don't know. I 34-16, maybe. I don't know, somewhere in there. Like,
That's a
it
very
would be a
good
lot,
number.
but it's. I just, especially the Bills coming off, like if they had, if they had blown Miami out, I'd be like, oh, maybe. But I just think like because the Bills already kind of had their letdown game against Miami, I just don't see them. I still see them being pretty sharp.
I do think you make a good point there. I'm right in that same territory. It's really funny. I had it. I was debating 31-16 and 34-16, so I was right there in that exact same range as you. And I do think you had mentioned those like 15 play drives that end up in field goals. Like that is the Bills' territory. Like that's what our Bills defense does. Is they're fine letting you and so anybody who's either in fantasy or wagering on the game, like the number of catch overs for Juwan Johnson, Alvin Kamara, even Chris Olave, I expect, honest to God, if Alvin Kamara had 9 catches for 72 yards, I would not be shocked.
Yeah.
Like I think this is going to be a ton of let him check it down. We'll rally and tackle. We just bet you can't continue to convert as you move down the field. And then when it gets into the red zone, and I do think we see some scoring drives, but I do think like 3 field goals, maybe 1 touchdown sounds about right. If like that Dolphins game felt closer than what it was. They had 3 scoring drives, 4 punts and a turnover. Normally those games are like 13 points. Normally that's not 21 points. So if the Saints convert multiple drives into touchdowns, which again, when you have weapons like Olave and Kamara, you never know. Or Rashid Shaheed gets loose for one later on. You never know what could be what could come of it. But I do think that it's going to be hard for the Saints to slow down this Bills offense. I think that they are a team that's going to put up 30-ish on just about everybody. We might get outscored in a game, in a couple of those games, and that we lose one of those Ravens games and don't have the crazy comeback, or stub our toe in a game that we're not supposed to. But I think it's going to be at the top end because of the defense, not because they get held to some 17-16 loss. I think this offense just has so many options, and Josh is playing so heady right now in his ability to evaluate and decipher at the line of scrimmage, and with a secondary that is either young or inexperienced playing together, like what the Saints have as a combination right now. Joe Brady and Josh Allen are just going to be too dangerous to keep that point total down. So they're going to need some big plays, maybe some special teams. I don't think it's crazy that Saints could have a special teams advantage on the Bills with how the Bills special teams been okay at best right now. So that's an area where maybe they could find a path. But Aaron, what did you predict for this game on Sunday?
Well, here I want to mic check real quick.
Better.
Okay, is that clear? All right.
Yes.
I get that. I had a loose
my way.
cord.
Apologies.
There was a cord loose. I apologize to the people of the internet. I'm back. Sorry about all the audio folks that had to deal with that earlier.
Nathan said you have Timu cords.
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't know what happened there. I'll fix it for the next one here. But an area of this game, in looking at it, I like I said at the start when you got on here, Matthew, I hope that the Bills are doing more work in preparation for this than I have this week. I have to admit, like I have slacked on my preparation, but one spot in preparation that I found, we talked about sort of bit of the line of scrimmage when we're doing my side of the ball. But when we look at this Bills offense versus the Saints defense, I see a discrepancy in the Bills and Aaron Cromer's ability to get yardage right out of the gate against the defensive line. I think that the Bills want to control football games in this way. We saw it. It didn't work against the Ravens, but we saw them want to come out and control a game that way. I think they did it against the Jets. I think they did it against Miami. I think they'll be able to do that here against the Saints. I expect another big James Cook day, running back day. I have this one at 35-13. I think the Bills just continue to play the type of football where they don't turn the ball over a ton. They kind of bleed the clock and allow their offense to go on long extended drives where they continue to score. And I do think that Sean McDermott confuses young quarterbacks enough that in this kind of quarterback evaluation phase, gonna force New Orleans to have to throw the ball probably earlier than they want to in this game, and I think they're going to force a couple turnovers and continue on this turnover streak where they've been able to get it. Ultimately, though, I hope they just show up and kind of handle business. I don't know. I don't care what the score is at the end of this. You just got to show up and handle business. I know the Saints are out there trying to give their absolute best shot after what occurred a week ago, and I do agree with you, Matthew. Like watching the first two games, that seemed like a feisty team that can kind of stick in a game and be really annoying. But last week, I think gave Bills fans a lot of hope with the team we've seen for a few weeks that maybe we can have a repeat performance of what we saw from the Saints a week ago. I hope not for your sake, Matthew. I hope you don't have to sit through one of those.
I don't really care if they win or lose, but it would be the variety is nice to write about. So
yes.
As long as it's not boring and bad, they can be feisty and bad, or just like last week was fun to write.
Just be entertaining.
I don't mind a train wreck. I covered the Washington Commanders for 6 years. So.
Yeah.
There you go.
So speaking of which, let the folks know what you have coming up next and where they can see what you're writing about coming up here in the near future.
Yeah, you can follow my work at NOLA.com or on Twitter at Matthew_Paris. I don't really – I wrote about Quincy Riley today. The rest of this week, I don't know. Maybe I'll talk to Chase Young if he's in the locker room or wants to talk about his injury some more. I don't know.
Is he going to play this year? Like, what is going on with that?
Year, sure, but I don't know in terms of this week. Probably not. So I don't. We'll see what's going on with that. And big picture wise, I've just got to see. Some people need to get back to me. I don't want to reveal a story that I'm working on, but I would like certain quarterbacks to return my phone calls. So please,
there we go.
Please get back to me on the story I want to do about the quarterback situation here. So that's awesome.
Beautiful. All right, we'll appreciate your time. We'll talk soon. Hopefully, we have an entertaining game on Sunday.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Hey, take care, man.
So as we switch gears here, remember in the chat, the best questions, we're going to have fantastic producer Colin Ritchie come up and ask us the best questions that are there. Aaron, as we look at this, I know as we talk about our friends over at William Mattar Law Offices and what we have going on there, I know it sounds like on the injury report, they're being a little cautious on some things. We did see Matt Milano, Spencer Brown, one more that was sitting Ed Oliver still not practicing. It sounded like Spencer Brown was a calf, not quite as serious, but again, I hate talking about things where you're assuming wins and taking things lightly, but they're a 16.5-point favorite for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I would much prefer, we are very conservative with anyone in this game. This is a game where you need to be able to win with Dorian Williams. You need to be able to win with Deion Walker and TJ Sanders. You need to even be able to win with Tylen Grable or Ryan Vandermark. Like, this is a game where we need to be able to have those guys step in and be able to play. What are your thoughts on I think as AJ here shared, I think AJ Epinesa was also limited in practice as well. Maybe a Landon Jackson appearance here for his first debut game. What are your expectations, and how do you balance that with not wanting to overlook an opponent, not wanting to be overly conservative, but also being very careful with health risks?
Yeah. I'm going to sound super cocky and confident for a second. I feel like you could win this game with Mitch Trubisky as the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills. I don't think this is a good team. I really don't. They hung around in those games. I think they can be a pesky team. I think they have some playmakers
Cam Jordan, DeMauro Davis. They
Yeah.
have some legitimate veterans that play hard, but this team is lacking talent.
It's lacking talent, specifically in the trenches. Really, like that talent that you mentioned is older. I like Carl Granderson, but he's not like a game record type player.
I didn't bring it up with Matthew. If you look at their number of total pressures, that's a team that should have like 3 sacks, not 8 sacks. They have some very like Jordan Phillips fluke season sack totals where like, hey, that number of pressures is not. And let me tell you, against Josh Allen, that number of pressures would not be 8 sacks.
No. Yeah, no, this team just doesn't seem like a team that really belongs threatening you. So you got to handle business with or without whatever you. But I do think McDermott's never probably going to do it to the degree that I would like, especially at this point in the season. But this would be a week where I would like to pull that Bosa snap count way back. Like this is a week to kind of let him just kind of get some reps in the game, stay feeling healthy, stay going through that game.
Maybe a reason to play Landon Jackson.
I think it's a reason to play
sit Joey Bosa for part of it.
I think it's a reason to bring up Jackson, whether or not for Bosa or not. I think this is a perfect week to see if Landon Jackson can get some run. I think it's a perfect week to test on some of those younger guys, lean on some of them, make some of those game day inactives that maybe you don't want to on a more competitive game, get them some special teams reps, things like that. Like I would toy with the bottom of the roster on this one, get some guys that I'm interested in getting a look at. It sounds so crazy to say these things, but it's almost like you're getting like a free preseason look here in the middle. Like you really should come out and win this. I think you can play sloppy football and win this game. I think you can even have some of the wonky things that go on in a trap type game. Like you can give up a fluky touchdown. I think you could still keep this game at an arm's length. I think you can still win by 10, giving up some fluky play to the Saints here. So go handle your business. And I think be very cautious with guys like a Bosa, guys like even Daquan Jones. Like I know he played really well and you had to lean on him quite a bit the last week. Like really manage some of those reps this week and see what you've got. Cause they've also got some roster decisions to make here as Maxwell Harrison comes back here soon, as Hoyt comes back. It's going to be here before we know where Ogunjobi and Hoyt are coming back. And we think that roster is tight. Landon Jackson's having a tough time getting on that roster now without Michael Hoyt there. You got to find out what you got in some of these guys. You got to find out what you're looking at as you head into the meat of this season. So I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise that they have this opportunity to be a little more conservative with some of the injuries and some of the star players that you know what you're getting and maybe take a look at some of these other guys.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a smart way to do it. They are not going to
They won't go crazy,
guys. Yeah. They're not going to overdo this. But I will say, like a calf injury is nothing to mess around with this Spencer Brown, and that I think there's no reason to rush Ed Oliver or Matt Milano back. Those are legitimate injuries. That adding one more week to that, there is no risk in adding one more week to that kind of recovery and rest. So I would love to see that kind of thing extended. And if AJ Epinesa really got dinged, sit him, let him rest, bring in Landon Jackson, let him play. Use the practice squad elevations intelligently. Maybe this is a game that you bring up Jordan Phillips and save one of the Zion Logue games. There's different things that we've already had 2 Zion Logue elevations. So I think that's an area there. I got to look on the practice squad. I think I saw that there was a bit of a ding off to the side. It wasn't reported the same way because he's technically on the practice squad, but we've seen elevations the last couple of weeks for Keontae Jenkins. So now all of a sudden, is this a Jimmy Charlo elevation game just to play the special teams reps from that standpoint? Because that's kind of where Keontae Jenkins was elevated for. And he basically took Jamarcus Ingram's game day active role. So that's another spot there where, hey, does he play? Do you have again Jimmy Charlo maybe being a chance for a special teams elevation? I'm perfectly fine with those kind of things. Be conservative with it. I wouldn't mind some Dorian Strong reps to be able to give him a chance to get a couple more reps with maybe protecting Trey White and those kind of things. So
I think it would be a good, as much as I think James Cook could carve this defense up and have a good day, I would like to see Ray get a little bit like this is the kind of like get him some touches, get more of that traditional what we saw a year ago where it's like James gets a series, Ray gets a series, like everybody gets a little bit and take some of that wear and tear off of James this year.
Yeah, and I think the fans in the chat were rightfully saying that could be a breakout Ray Davis game, and he hasn't been as impactful as we've seen. And part of that's been because James Cook has been phenomenal.
He's on
and
a
has
heater.
been one of the top running backs in the league. So, like, obviously, it's not because our running game is suffering, but we haven't needed to do the rotation that we've done historically to be able to get there. So, big shout out to our guys over at William Mattar Law Offices. Appreciate them. You guys know the slogan, hurt in a car, call William Mattar, 844-444-4444. Now, let's wrap up with our final thoughts here and bring up our fantastic producer, Colin Ritchie, with the best questions in the chat.
As we bring up Colin, though, I want to bring up a point that you had mentioned how infrequently the Bills and Saints play. And I just have to say that the last time in 2017 was one of the worst days of my life in the Sean McDermott era. Mark Ingram.
That's actually accurate.
Mark Ingram went off that particular game, I think. He had, he must have had 150 yards or so.
I remember at least 3 touchdowns, but that game, I think, did they rush for 300 yards that day? It was a high 200s if they didn't hit 300.
They just ran all over that Bills defense.
It was one of the most demoralizing defensive games I can ever remember.
You weren't here yet. I was still doing post game. Our star was doing post games. One of the worst post games that I've ever had, and it came on a stretch. Like, it was one of those slumps that the Bills tend to have here early in the season. Colin, it was one of those slumps. I don't know if you remember that period of time. And then they slumped super hard, and then that kind of led into on the post game we were talking like, oh, do you bench? Because Tyrod also had like a 50-yard first half performance or something. It's like, oh, did we finally bench him? That led to the Peterman stuff, and it was just a debacle.
I don't want to relive that, but there was a reason to put Nathan Peterman in the game.
Yes.
People will always go back to that there was some, I know there are a lot of wild accusations thrown around about you benching Tyrod, who was a perfectly sufficient player. He played horrendously.
Yes. The post game. The post-game comments were not friendly towards Tyrod. I'll just let you know that the YouTube was on fire that day. So anyways, it did. The last time we played the Saints didn't bring up a whole lot of great memories for me. We need redemption for that. Let's have a
we did catch him on Thanksgiving a couple years ago and blew him out.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was a SmackDown that we had there. But yeah, they have not lost in Buffalo only once in the history of our 2 franchises, which is wild.
Yeah.
Let's give them another one.
Yeah. See that. Colin, what are the best?
What do you got for us, buddy?
Sure. So not a question, but Tank Ninja is predicting Benford to have 5 interceptions in this game. Now that might be a bit of a stretch, but how many turnovers do you see the Bills generating in this game? What's your prediction for that?
Over under 1.5. What are you taking?
I'll take the over. We're so consistent creating turnovers that when you add in Spencer Rattler has a little Jameis Winston to him, he likes to chuck it up there. We do have a penchant for punching the ball out. I do think that 2 is a reasonable number in a game like this. I'll go with over 1.5.
I have a sense that this could be a very havoc-inducing day against Rattler here. I think that the pass rush finally starts to really get home in this one. I can see 3. I would take the over. I could see a 3-turnover day. I think they'll score, but I think they'll struggle to move the ball against this defense.
Move the ball. Olave and Kamara are too good. They're going to move the ball. There might be some annoying moments like in the Bills
where they
Dolphins
bust
game.
some big ones.
Great. If it gets out of hand quickly early, it could go really downhill, just like what happened to the Saints in week 3. But if it doesn't, it could be like one of their early games where it stays kind of close or competitive, and then the better team pulls away at the end. It's not automatic that it's going to be some boat race blowout.
I would like it to just be a boat race, but what's the next one?
Yeah, I'll go over 1.5 just for the record as well.
I like it.
Our next question comes from Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Thoughts on bringing in CJ Gardner-Johnson, released by the Texans yesterday? Greg, Aaron, what are your thoughts?
I'll start on this one. I get the intrigue. I understand that there's concern around the safety position. I actually think Cole Bishop has played better than people have acknowledged, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is much more of a Taylor Rapp kind of hybrid Taron Johnson, late stage Jordan Poyer piece. He's more of now a dime linebacker overhang other piece. He's not the 5 interception a season guy he was in Philadelphia. He's also right there on the borderline of malcontent locker room issue guy that was worth it when he was a game-changing, havoc-wreaking weapon, that now as he gets older and isn't quite there, there were some comments about a lack of accountability and some things there that don't sound, again, I don't think we only go after choir boys. We have, there were issues with Von Miller. Joey Bosa has not had a perfect history. There are, being tried to trade for Antonio Brown. Like there was Stephon Diggs had questions. Like they have gone after guys with other things, but everyone there, some of those things earlier in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's career matched some of the Stephon Diggs stuff where, hey, on the field, he's a dog and is a crazy hard worker and everything there. I think we might be slightly past that point. I just assume that he's going to end up back in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I also assume he's going to end up back in Philadelphia. I also just, I'm having a tough time with the conversation about safety. Sean McDermott was pretty clear, I think, to the fan base this summer of talking about the vision that they see, what they believe in, and where they want to go, and that it will be a developmental process, and that development isn't linear, and that there's going to be mistakes along the way. I think they're prepared for some of the frustrating play that we've seen. I think they are prepared to brace and live within some of that here, especially early.
We got 14 more games to let him learn.
Yeah, I think they want to get some of it out, as frustrating as it is for fans. It's not just, like you said, I think Bishop has actually been playing better. I think Rapp is still also like getting some stuff out of playing with Bishop. And I don't think it's been all safety play. Like, I don't want this podcast to get off into some dissertation on like safety play, but I think a lot of the stuff in some of the run game stuff is not great. Interior defensive line play, linebacker play, where it gets to the safety at a high rate, and that we're seeing the Bill safeties get exposed in that way. I also want you to go watch some of the better safeties in the league. Lions safeties, like Lions played really good the other day. Their safeties didn't look great against the Ravens the other night. Like there's not
they
a lot
have a really dynamic, well thought of duo.
The best, I think, in the league. So I'm willing to allow this safety unit to take their lumps, play throughout time. I see them getting better here week over week. From week one, I've seen it get better. I'm sure McDermott feels that internally. And I don't know that they're like going to make some knee-jerk move at this position. We've seen a few opportunities. Jabril Peppers probably would have made a lot more sense to me than a Gardner-Johnson. So the fact that they kind of passed on that told me a little bit. Gardner-Johnson, to me, you mentioned a lot of it, Greg, so I'm not going to rehash. I don't think the scheme fit really is as there as people think. I think he's a particular type of tool right now. And I think Philly is a great place that can go and use him exactly as that, plop him right in. And the Bills defense, another thing is they've talked about it a bunch. It is a pretty complex scheme. I don't think they're in a position where they believe safety plays as bad, where they can pull somebody off the street and rely on, hey, this person's talent is better than their knowledge of the defense, and we're going to get a good enough return on this acquisition versus, hey, this guy knows the defense. He's still making mistakes, but we believe we can coach him in the right direction. So I believe in their ability to get these guys coached up here by playoff football. And I don't think we'll have a top end safety group, but I think we'll have a pretty good safety group.
Yeah. You said it perfectly. If they didn't bring in Jabril Peppers, they're not bringing a guy. Like they had a guy who his strength was coverage with return ability and still ability to move in space. And that's the spot they would have brought somebody in, and with, not the crazy, like Jabril Peppers had a little bit of some noise around him, but nothing like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So if they didn't bring in Jabril Peppers, they're not bringing in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
I don't think so. I won't be shocked. Bean will
I won't be upset.
Moves and stuff like that. I won't be upset they had talent, but I think there's a lot of people that make an assumption that some of these names that we recognize will be immediate upgrades over what we've got, and I don't know that that's true. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest Peppers would have been better or Gardner-Johnson would be better.
Has anyone seen how many touchdowns Jair Alexander has chased from behind?
That's what I'm saying.
Get over top. Jair Alexander had to get benched. He might be a healthy scratch for Baltimore because he's been so bad. So yeah, some of these things, there's a reason these guys are out there and available. And if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was still playing the same way he was, DeMeco Ryans would still have him playing on defense.
Yes, he would tolerate the noise.
Yes.
For sure. How about you, Colin? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that Jabril Peppers is a good litmus test for whether or not the Bills are actually interested in whatever's available at the safety market, because once the season starts, you're not really getting much better than that. I know we talked about Justin Simmons a couple weeks ago before the season started. They had the time to kick the tires on him. They chose not to. They chose not to with Jabril Peppers. I don't see
I
why
think
you
they've
would
got
go
that
with,
in Jordan Poyer too. Like
Right.
not to, and it's very.
They
similar.
took their shot with Derek
Yeah.
Forrest. Derek Forrest
Right.
was their like lottery ticket. Like, hey, maybe we hit on something cheap here that could be a fit. He didn't have it. We know there's a floor with DeMar Hamlin. We've seen a floor with Cam Lewis. Jordan Poyer is there from a knowledge standpoint, and break glass in case of emergency. But this defense is going to go as far as continuity growing between Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop. It just is.
Yeah.
All right, let's get one more in here.
Yeah. All right. And Aaron, feel free to chime in if you have any past experience with this, but this one's specifically for Greg. How was In-N-Out? And what's the rating out of 10? Ryan wants to know.
Okay. So I am in San Diego. And the team, I've been around in San Francisco yesterday. I'm in San Diego today. I'm going to be in LA tomorrow. The team wanted to get lunch, and they had mentioned some different places. And they said, "Oh, have you had, you've had In-N-Out, of course." I was like, "I actually don't think I have." And everyone lost their minds. Like, "Oh my God, you've never had In-N-Out." In-N-Out is an interesting thing because people feel super obligated to tell me their opinion on In-N-Out Burger. Like, people feel like they need to tell you either passionately how great it is or passionately how overrated it is. So it's weird. I went to a lovely Japanese restaurant last night and got a very fancy izaki box that was awesome. They had a whole bunch of really, really good stuff. Nobody had to yell at me about Japanese food. But In-N-Out Burger, people feel super passionately. So I will say, I got a double animal style. The team here took care of me. They told me what to order and how to order it. The burger was excellent. It was excellent for a fast food burger. So like whether you like Shake Shack or Five Guys or Whataburger or whatever it is, I think it was as good or maybe better than those places. One of the best fast food burgers I've had. The fries were nothing special. I thought they were kind of okay. But the burger was awesome. It was genuinely really, really good. I don't know that it was like some life-changing event, but if I come back, I will get In-N-Out again. It was very good. It was a very good cheeseburger. So the burger itself for a fast food burger is like a 9 out of 10. Like, it was really, really good. One of the better ones I've had. And I will say, I like Five Guys. I like Shake Shack. They're both good. It was like half the price of those two places. So if it's as good for like half the price, that's an awesome value. So I'll put them at the top of my list for the fact that they don't charge. You don't go in there and a burger and fries doesn't cost you $20. It's insane at some of the other places. So great experience, really good. They went and got the stuff, so maybe the burger held up better than the fries did on the drive back to bring the food back. So maybe the fries would have been better, like crispy and fresh if I was sitting at the restaurant. But the burger was awesome.
I have been to In-N-Out. I have to say about all these places, my stance on all of them is pretty much the same across the board, is that none of them are worth the hype that their fans want it to be. They're all fast food and they're all pretty good.
Yeah.
They're all pretty good. Like, it's all good.
It's like with chicken wings. Like, it's kind of hard to mess up a good, like if you have a griddle and decent beef and a bun, like it's hard to mess up a cheeburger. It's a cheeseburger.
This food's easy food. It's no matter what region I visited friends around this country, I've gone to every like, oh, you got to try this thing, and it's all that was good.
It's good.
But I wouldn't wait in line for it, or I wouldn't people go too far. The Raising Cane's, all these things, like you gotta have it. And it's like, really, because it's
all right.
It was like a frozen chicken patty out of.
I'm not standing for Raising Cane's slander on the podcast. I'm not standing for.
Don't worry, we'll tell Reed.
See what I mean?
We'll tell Reed.
Tell Reed. Tell him. Anyways,
I've been to some steakhouses where I've had a meal that was like, holy crap.
Yes.
Like it was, and again, no food's life-changing, but it was like, oh my God, that's one of the best meals I've ever had in my life. That should never happen at a fast food restaurant. That
shouldn't be such a passion, such a passionate fan following for freezer food.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Okay. It was good. It was good.
It's good.
Really
it's good. It's good stuff. I'm not yet. Don't In-N-Out. I don't want In-N-Out internet coming after me. I'm not trying to say anything. This isn't one of those. This is like one of those that Twitter posts where it's like, I think I like
Yeah,
waffles.
I
Oh, so
like
you
oranges.
hate? Yeah.
Why do you hate pineapples? What the hell's
I
wrong
don't
with
want
you?
that. Yes, I like all.
It's
fast
very
food.
good. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
it. I really, really like it. And I assume that if I had the fries fresh there, they
Sure,
probably
be
would have been
better.
good.
Yeah.
I will say I was advised to get my burger animal style, but I was told afterwards I could have got the fries animal style. I don't know what that would have involved.
Oh, here's
But
I got a good one fast food take that'll get the internet real frustrated with me tonight. The Western New York internet is I've never had Mighty Taco. Been here 12 years, never had it. I've heard it's not as good as it used to be.
it's so to me, Mighty Taco is like a White Castle where
Yeah.
in college at 2 a.m. when you're drunk, it's awesome. But like at no point are you going to be like, oh man, I would love to go stop by Mighty Taco and have a lovely meal. Like it's just,
I don't know. That careful saying that around
someone's
here,
gonna yell at
man.
me for
Careful saying
saying
that
that.
around here. Yeah, I
It
don't
was
know.
awesome drunk at 2 a.m. in college.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. But I've never had any people get mad at me. They're like, you got to move. So I got to go do it. Maybe I'll live stream it someday.
You have to leave town
Yeah.
right now.
Colin gets it. Colin's shaking his head. He's like, yeah, actually, you probably should move.
Yeah. You're in trouble.
All right.
Colin,
We got a
anything else
super
for this
chat here
week?
we didn't get to also,
let's get
right,
it.
Jason? What's Jason have to say here? Oh, here we go. I don't think this game will be what we expect. We are dominant. We are dominant, but other teams know that. They will try to beat us by being aggressive. They try and beat us by playing safe and controlling the clock. They don't try to beat us by being aggressive. They try to beat us by playing safe and controlling the clock. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, that only works if you're really moving the ball consistently for 12 to 14 play drives. My thing with the Bills is your offense has to be able to do that 4 or more times to beat us. Good luck.
It's the exact same thing as the Dolphins game. The Dolphins did not play that well. They had 276 yards of offense. They did not score on 5 of their 8 drives. Normally, that's a blowout win. It happened that they were incredibly efficient in the red zone and that they scored 3 touchdowns on their only 3 successful drives of the game. That is incredibly rare in today's NFL and not something I expect the Saints to do. Matter of fact, I'll be outright disappointed if that's what the Saints do.
I will be yelling at the defense if the Saints do the same type of things Miami was able to do on those good drives.
Yeah. If they let that happen, that will be disappointing. But even if we replayed that Dolphins game multiple times, 6 times out of 10 that game would have been.
Well, that one drive, Tyreek goes out of bounds and they don't continue.
Yeah, correct.
So one of
them
them off the books, yes, and then another one we probably get a hand on a ball or something.
Yeah. I actually saw a really good replay of the play that set up the frustrating 2nd and long run. Zach Sealer called out the play and jumped the gap the other direction and blew it up individually. And Zach Sealer's a stud. Like the rest of their defense isn't all that good, but he's still a monster. And those kind of things are going to happen. So if tomorrow DeMario Davis blows up a play, Cam Jordan gets a strip sack fumble, like there could be a wonky play. They still have some professionals who are good football players and still doing some good things. They don't have the depth to hang in there. So even if we don't cover, even if we have an annoying game that we end up having to win later than what we would like, and it's more competitive than what we would like, they're going to be able to pull this game out. Like it just is. And if it starts the other way and it goes downhill more quickly, it could get out of hand, just like that Saints game where it was, I think a lot to a little at halftime.
Mark Ingram ain't walking through that door.
Yeah, they're just not that squad.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we appreciate it. Thank you for the chat. Thank you for your patience with the audio issues. We had a little bit of a challenge earlier, but don't worry. The YouTube comments will yell at you for that.
Blast me in the algorithm.
Yeah, just let everybody know about it. We appreciate you guys very, very much. A huge shout out to Matthew Paris for joining us for the first time. Always a big thank you to fantastic producer Colin Ritchie. For my lovely co-host Aaron Quinn, you have been listening to Cover One Buffalo. I am your host, Greg Tompsett, and we are out.